Jesus, teach me to stay in the presence of the Holy Spirit every day. You've had powerful moments with God, moments where you felt close, clear, alive. But you don't want moments anymore. You want constancy. You don't want to feel the Holy Spirit only during worship. You don't want to sense Jesus only in a crisis. You don't want awareness to come and go, depending on your mood. Some days you feel spiritually anchored. Other days you get pulled into work, stress, conversations, responsibilities, and hours pass before you even remember to acknowledge Him. And that realization hurts, not because you stopped loving Jesus, but because you want more than occasional closeness. You want daily communion. Here is the question that changes everything. What if staying in the presence of the Holy Spirit is not about intensity, but about attention? What if the issue has never been that God comes and goes, but that your awareness rises and falls? The Holy Spirit is not seasonal. He is consistent, but your focus is fragile. You live in a world designed to fracture your attention. Notifications, deadlines, conversations, thoughts that never stop. Your brain is constantly switching targets, and what you give your attention to becomes your lived reality. If your awareness is scattered, your spiritual consciousness weakens, not because God withdrew, but because your mind moved. Today, you are going to learn how to live daily in the presence of the Holy Spirit. Not emotionally, not occasionally, intentionally. This is not about chasing spiritual highs. It is about training awareness. It is about building rhythms. It is about shifting from visiting God to dwelling with Him. And it begins with a truth that may confront you. The problem is not God's absence. It's your attention. God is not absent. He is present. That may sound simple, but if you truly believed it, your daily life would look different. The fluctuation you experience is not happening in heaven. It is happening in your awareness. You can sit across from someone you love and still not truly notice them because your mind is somewhere else. They are there. They are present, but your attention is fragmented. Presence is relational, but awareness is neurological. Your brain was designed to prioritize what it believes is urgent. It filters thousands of stimuli every second and focuses only on what it has been trained to value. If you train it to value notifications, pressure, productivity, and comparison, that is where your consciousness will settle, and then you wonder why you forget the Holy Spirit. Not because He left, because your mind moved. You wake up with good intentions. You pray briefly. You say, Lord, walk with me today. But by mid-morning, emails demand urgency. Conversations pull your emotions. Deadlines press on your thoughts. Your nervous system shifts into performance mode. And without realizing it, your awareness narrows to survival. This is not spiritual failure. It is untrained attention. In Colossians chapter 3, verse 2, it says, to set your mind on things above, not on earthly things. That phrase, set your mind, implies deliberate direction. It is not passive. It is not accidental. It is intentional. Abiding is not something you fall into. It is something you cultivate. When your attention is constantly divided, your spiritual sensitivity weakens. Not because the Holy Spirit withdraws, but because your internal environment becomes crowded. Overstimulation dulls awareness. Mental multitasking reduces depth. You skim through life instead of inhabiting it, and if you skim through life, you will skim past the presence of God. You can love Jesus deeply and still live most of your day unaware of Him. That does not mean you are distant from Him relationally. It means your mind has not been trained to return. Attention is a discipline. What you repeatedly focus on becomes your dominant reality. If you repeatedly pause to acknowledge the Spirit, your awareness strengthens. If you repeatedly ignore that inner prompting, your consciousness adapts to distraction. Your brain creates pathways based on repetition. The more you redirect your thoughts toward Him, the more natural that redirection becomes. Over time, awareness shifts from effort to instinct. This is why daily spiritual life is not built on intensity. It is built on alignment. You do not need longer hours of prayer to stay connected. You need consistent moments of return, small acknowledgements, brief inward shifts, micro decisions that say, "Holy Spirit, I am aware of you right now." The problem is not that God comes and goes. It is that your attention drifts and must be gently brought back. And here is the key. You do not bring your attention back with condemnation. You bring it back with calm correction. Every time you notice you have drifted, that noticing itself is grace, that awareness is an invitation. The Holy Spirit is not frustrated with your humanity. He invites your training. But if attention must be trained, then remaining in His presence cannot depend on emotion. It cannot depend on mood. It must become something stronger. It must become a practiced skill. Abiding is a skill, not a mood. If abiding depended on mood, you would never sustain it. Some mornings you wake up spiritually alert. Other mornings your mind feels heavy before you even leave your bed. If remaining in the presence of the Holy Spirit depended on how inspired you feel, your communion would rise and fall with your emotions. But Jesus never described abiding as an emotion. He described it as something intentional. In John chapter 15, verse 4, He says, "Remain in me, and I will remain in you." That word remain is not dramatic. It is steady. It implies continuity, stability, decision. Remaining is not a feeling you wait for. It is a posture you practice. Think about any skill you have developed in life. You did not wake up one day naturally disciplined, focused, or strong. You trained, you repeated, you corrected. You built patterns until they became natural. Abiding works the same way. At first, it feels deliberate. You must consciously redirect your thoughts. You must intentionally pause before reacting. You must choose to whisper, "Holy Spirit, guide me," in the middle of a busy day. But repetition builds familiarity. The more you practice returning your attention to Him, the more natural that return becomes. The more you cultivate inner awareness, the less dependent you become on external atmosphere. Mood is unstable. Skill is reliable. If you tie your spiritual life to inspiration, you will constantly feel inconsistent. But if you tie it to disciplined awareness, you will discover stability. This does not mean legalism. It means training. You are not trying to earn God's presence. You are learning to dwell in what is already available. Abiding is not forcing closeness. It is learning how to stay conscious of a closeness that already exists. The reason many believers struggle is because they expect abiding to feel spontaneous every day. When it does not feel spontaneous, they assume something is wrong. Nothing is wrong. You are simply being invited to grow. Spiritual maturity moves from emotional dependency to intentional practice. Early faith depends on strong experiences. Mature faith develops steady rhythms. And here is what changes everything. You do not practice abiding to become loved. You practice abiding because you already are, which leads to something foundational. Before you talk about intimacy, you must understand identity. Identity before intimacy. You do not stay in the presence of the Holy Spirit to become loved. You stay because you already are. This is where many people silently struggle. They try to abide so that God will be pleased. They try to remain so they can feel accepted. They try to stay spiritually aware in order to prove devotion. But intimacy built on insecurity will always feel unstable. If you believe you must maintain God's presence through performance, you will live spiritually anxious. Every distracted hour will feel like failure. Every missed prayer will feel like distance. Every dry moment will feel like disapproval. But your relationship with God does not begin with your effort. It begins with your identity. In Romans chapter 8, verse 15, it says that you did not receive a spirit of slavery to fall back into fear, but you received the Spirit of adoption, by whom we cry, Abba, Father. Adoption changes everything. You are not trying to earn access. You already belong. When a child sits near a loving parent, he does not earn proximity, he rests in it. He does not maintain relationship through flawless behavior. He grows within it. Identity creates security. Security allows intimacy to flourish. If you try to remain in the Spirit while secretly doubting your acceptance, you will always feel tension. But when you know you are already embraced, staying becomes natural. You do not wake up to secure God's love for the day. You wake up already loved. You do not begin your morning trying to convince Him to walk with you. He already promised to dwell within you. Abiding is not earning, it is aligning. When identity is clear, intimacy becomes steady. When identity is shaky, intimacy becomes exhausting. This is why spiritual discipline must flow from relational confidence. You return to awareness not because you fear losing Him, but because you cherish communion. You pause during the day not to prove loyalty, but to enjoy closeness. You whisper His name not out of desperation, but out of desire. Identity stabilizes the heart, and a stable heart can practice daily alignment without fear. But knowing who you are is only the beginning. The next step is learning how to live that identity throughout ordinary hours. Because remaining is not built on one long prayer, it is built on many small alignments, daily micro-surrenders. Staying in the presence of the Holy Spirit is not sustained by one powerful prayer in the morning. It is sustained by many small surrenders throughout the day. You do not drift away from God in one dramatic decision. You drift through unnoticed moments, and you do not remain in Him through one emotional experience. You remain through repeated, quiet alignment. A micro-surrender is a conscious pause before you speak, a brief acknowledgement before you decide, a silent guide me before you react. Before entering a meeting, you whisper, Holy Spirit, lead my words. Before responding to a difficult message, you pause and ask, shape my tone. Before making a choice, you internally shift and say, align my thinking. These are not long prayers, they are short recalibrations. In Proverbs chapter 3, verse 6, it says to acknowledge Him in all your ways, and He will make your paths straight. Acknowledge does not mean host a full devotional moment. It means recognize, include, invite. Micro-surrenders transform ordinary hours into sacred space. Instead of dividing your day into spiritual and secular, you begin to see every moment as relational. Driving becomes awareness, waiting becomes conversation, walking becomes communion. The more frequently you practice these brief alignments, the less distance builds between formal prayer and daily life. You stop compartmentalizing God. You no longer wait for a quiet room to reconnect. You learn to return in seconds. The power of micro-surrenders is cumulative. Each small pause strengthens your awareness. Each short redirection reinforces habit. Each internal shift trains your mind to live with Him, not just visit Him. And here is the beauty. You do not need perfect consistency to practice this. You need willingness. When you forget, you return. When you react impulsively, you realign. When you feel distracted, you gently refocus. Daily life becomes the training ground for abiding. But if you want this to last, you cannot depend only on spontaneous moments. You need structure that protects awareness without turning into legalism, which means you must build rhythms that sustain what you are learning. Building rhythms that protect awareness. If you do not build rhythms, distraction will build them for you. Your day already has patterns. You wake up a certain way. You check your phone at certain times. You move from task to task almost automatically. The question is not whether you have rhythms. The question is whether those rhythms protect your awareness of the Holy Spirit or slowly erode it. Spiritual life does not grow by accident. It grows by design. This is not about legalism, it is about structure that supports relationship. Jesus himself lived with intentional rhythm. In Mark chapter 1 verse 35, it says that very early in the morning, while it was still dark, he got up, left the house, and went to a solitary place to pray. That was not emotional spontaneity, that was deliberate anchoring. A morning anchor matters. Before the noise of the world claims your attention, you anchor your mind in him. Not necessarily with long devotion every day, but with focused presence. You start the day reminding your soul who walks with you. Midday, reset matters. By noon, your attention is scattered. Conversations, responsibilities, decisions have pulled you outward. A brief reset recenters you. A quiet moment, a short prayer, a conscious breath that says, I return to you. Evening reflection matters. Before sleep, you review the day with him, not to judge yourself, but to notice. Where did I drift? Where did I sense guidance? Where did I forget to surrender? Reflection trains awareness for tomorrow. Rhythms create spiritual muscle memory. Without structure, your awareness depends on mood. With structure, your awareness gains stability. But here is the balance. Rhythms are containers, not replacements for relationship. The structure protects awareness, but the spirit gives it life. When you build intentional patterns, you reduce the mental friction of returning to him. You do not wait for inspiration. You step into rhythm, and over time, what once required effort begins to feel natural. But there is another layer that determines whether these rhythms truly transform you. It is the conversation happening inside your own mind, training your inner dialogue. You live in conversation all day long, not just with people, with yourself. There is a constant inner dialogue running beneath your actions, thoughts interpreting events, narratives forming conclusions, silent reactions shaping emotions. And if that internal conversation is untrained, it will drift toward anxiety, criticism, comparison, and fear. The Holy Spirit often speaks in that same internal space, not always as an audible voice, often as an impression, a gentle conviction, a redirected thought, a sudden clarity. But if your inner dialogue is chaotic, his guidance gets buried under mental noise. In 2 Corinthians chapter 10 verse 5 it says, to take every thought captive to obey Christ. That is not poetic language, it is practical instruction. Thoughts can be examined, redirected, submitted. Training your inner dialogue means becoming aware of what you are rehearsing mentally. When something happens, what story do you immediately tell yourself? When you face pressure, what voice gets louder? When you make a mistake, what accusation surfaces? If you never examine your internal script, it will dominate your awareness. The Spirit does not compete with noise. He invites alignment. When a fearful thought appears, you pause and ask, Holy Spirit, is this true? When anger rises, you ask, shape my response. When insecurity whispers, you remind yourself of your identity. You begin to consciously partner your thoughts with him. This is not about suppressing emotion. It is about aligning interpretation. The more you practice redirecting your internal dialogue toward truth, the clearer his guidance becomes. The more you filter your reactions through awareness, the more stable your communion feels. Abiding is not only about external rhythms. It is about internal alignment. And even with training, there will be moments when you drift, when you forget, when hours pass without conscious awareness. What matters most is not that you never lose focus. What matters is how quickly you return. When you lose awareness, how to return quickly, you will lose awareness. Not because you stopped loving Jesus, not because the Holy Spirit withdrew, but because you are human. There will be hours when you operate on autopilot, conversations that consume you, pressures that narrow your focus, moments where you realize, I have not acknowledged him all day. What you do in that moment determines everything. Most people respond with guilt. They think, I failed again. I should be more consistent. I need to try harder tomorrow. And guilt creates distance, but the Spirit does not invite you back through shame. He invites you back through recognition. The return is simple. You notice that noticing is not failure, it is grace. Awareness of drift is already evidence of connection. In James chapter 4 verse 8 it says, "Draw near to God and he will draw near to you." That drawing near does not require ceremony, it requires acknowledgement. You do not need to rebuild intimacy from scratch. You simply turn your attention back. Holy Spirit, I am here again. Jesus, I recognize you in this moment. Father, I return. That is enough. The faster you learn to return without self-condemnation, the more stable your communion becomes. You stop seeing drift as disaster. You start seeing it as an invitation to realign. Presence is not fragile. It does not collapse because you were distracted for 3 hours. It does not vanish because you forgot to pray at noon. It waits. When you remove guilt from the equation, reconnection becomes immediate instead of delayed. You do not spiral. You step back in. And the more frequently you practice quick return, the less intimidating inconsistency feels. You are not trying to maintain perfection. You are cultivating responsiveness. But there is a deeper shift that transforms everything. It is the difference between visiting God at certain times and dwelling with Him in all times. The difference between visiting and dwelling. Many believers visit God. They have a time, a place, a devotional window, and during that space they become spiritually attentive. They pray, they read, they reflect. Then they close the moment and step back into ordinary life. Visiting is sincere, but it is temporary. Dwelling is different. Dwelling means you do not step out of awareness when the devotional moment ends. It means the presence of the Holy Spirit is not confined to a schedule. It means your communion does not begin when you kneel and end when you stand. In John chapter 15 verse 5, Jesus says that whoever abides in him bears much fruit. Abiding implies continuity. It implies living connection, not periodic contact. Visiting says, I will meet with you now. Dwelling says, I will walk with you always. When you visit, you compartmentalize. You have spiritual moments and secular hours. But when you dwell, the line disappears. Work becomes participation. Conversations become guided. Decisions become collaborative. Dwelling is not more dramatic. It is more integrated. You begin to carry awareness into ordinary interactions. You sense His guidance when responding to a message. You recognize His restraint before speaking sharply. You feel His prompting in subtle redirections. Dwelling shifts the question from, did I have time with God today? To, did I remain conscious of Him throughout my day? This changes your entire framework. You stop measuring spiritual success by the length of prayer and begin measuring it by the consistency of awareness. Dwelling does not mean you think about God every second. It means you remain relationally open every hour. He is not an appointment. He is a companion. And when you understand this, something extraordinary begins to happen. The ordinary parts of your life start becoming sacred, making ordinary moments sacred. If you only expect to meet God in extraordinary moments, you will miss Him most of the day. The Holy Spirit does not reserve His presence for church buildings, worship music, or quiet mornings. He inhabits your Tuesday afternoon. He walks with you in traffic. He is present in your kitchen, your office, your gym, your waiting room. The difference is not location. It is awareness. In 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 31, it says that whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God. That statement removes the divide between sacred and ordinary. It means even simple actions can become expressions of communion. Driving becomes sacred when you invite Him into your thoughts. Working becomes sacred when you offer your effort as worship. Waiting becomes sacred when you choose patience through His strength. You do not need a dramatic atmosphere to live in His presence. You need intentional consciousness. When you fold laundry, you can talk to Him. When you prepare a meal, you can thank him. When you answer a difficult email, you can ask for wisdom before typing. Holiness is not confined to religious activities. It is infused into normal life through awareness. The Spirit does not require spectacle. He invites participation. The more you practice seeing him in ordinary spaces, the more continuous your communion becomes. You stop dividing your day into spiritual and practical. Everything becomes relational. This is how awareness deepens, not through rare intensity, but through repeated inclusion. And when ordinary life becomes sacred, something shifts inside you. Practice slowly transforms into lifestyle. From practice to lifestyle. At first, staying aware of the Holy Spirit feels intentional. You remind yourself. You pause deliberately. You redirect your thoughts with effort. It feels like practice because it is. But something beautiful happens over time. What began as discipline becomes natural. What required reminders becomes instinct. What felt structured becomes integrated. This is how lifestyle is formed. In Galatians chapter 5, verse 25, it says that if we live by the Spirit, let us also walk by the Spirit. Living and walking are not occasional acts. They are continuous movement. They describe rhythm, not event. When awareness becomes lifestyle, you no longer ask constantly, "Am I doing this right?" You simply remain attentive. You begin to notice his influence without straining for it. Your decisions feel less rushed. Your responses become slower and more measured. Your inner world feels anchored instead of scattered. You are no longer visiting presence. You are living from it. Lifestyle is formed when repetition becomes identity. You are no longer someone trying to stay connected. You are someone who lives connected. This does not mean you never drift. It means drift is shorter. It means return is quicker. It means awareness is default, not exception. Consistency replaces intensity. And here is the powerful shift. When abiding becomes lifestyle, you stop striving to feel spiritual. You simply breathe differently. Your thoughts include him naturally. Your gratitude rises spontaneously. Your pauses become instinctive. The Holy Spirit is no longer something you try to remember. He becomes the atmosphere of your life. But there is one final revelation. This is not about mastering a technique. It is about becoming a person whose life breathes him. A life that breathes the Holy Spirit. This is where everything comes together. You are not learning a technique. You are becoming a dwelling place. A life that breathes the Holy Spirit is not dramatic every day. It is steady. It is aware. It is surrendered in motion. Breathing is natural. You do not force it. You do not schedule it. It happens because you are alive. In the same way, when your identity is secure, your attention is trained, your rhythms are built, and your heart is aligned, communion becomes natural, not effortless, but integrated. In Acts chapter 17, verse 28, it says that in him we live and move and have our being. That is not poetic exaggeration. It is reality. Your existence is already surrounded by him. The shift is becoming conscious of that truth daily. A life that breathes the Spirit does not compartmentalize. Work is done with him. Conversations happen before him. Decisions are made through him. You wake aware. You walk attentive. You rest connected. This does not mean constant emotional awareness. It means relational openness. A posture that says, I am with you and you are with me. When life breathes the Holy Spirit, peace stabilizes your reactions. Patience shapes your tone. Discernment filters your choices. Gratitude colors your thinking. You are no longer chasing presence. You are carrying it. And here is the invitation. Do not leave this as inspiration. Turn it into intention. Say it with clarity. Jesus, teach me to remain. Holy Spirit, train my awareness. Father, shape my rhythms. If this message awakened something in you, write in the comments. I choose to dwell, not visit. Let that declaration mark a shift from momentary encounters to daily communion. You do not want moments. You want a life. And that life begins with conscious, steady, surrendered breathing in the presence of the Holy Spirit.